Hi, so this will be the final segment of CS211. Our exams will end, rather the scope that is tested for the examinations will end after this segment. So let's go with the running example. So the running example that we'll be having is I can't go next. Okay, is this running example whereby I have R joined with S. Students will be joined with, for example, student joining with the ticks, student joining with the student table, joining with the ticks table. And these are some basic numbers that we are using. The number of students is 5,000. Number of blocks of students is 100. Number of ticks is 10,000. So 10,000 tuples and 400 blocks of ticks. So these will be the base numbers that we'll be using. Let's look at the first one, which is the nested loop join. In the nested loop join, this is in fact equivalent to 2 for loops. Let me see where my mouse is right now. Okay, 2 for loops. So we have the first for loop that goes across the tuple of relationship of R, and the second for loop that goes across the relationship of S. And we're going to iterate across these 2 for loops and to test if they satisfy a certain join condition or not. And if they do satisfy the join condition, that pair will be added to the result. So this is used primarily if both R and S are able to fit into memory. So this will be the situation whereby you usually use R and S. And the worst case scenario of this will be if we only need there's enough memory space to keep the entire table. So R and S, enough memory, so enough memory to fit. So we just need to do all the block transfers into the memory. And then after that, I just need to do 2 of the 6 of for the block transfer. Okay, so so this will be all that is required. So for the worst case scenario is if the buffer only holds 1 block of each relationship. So when it holds only 1 block, what happens is that So what happens is that I'm going to have an outer block, or rather the outer loop, and this outer loop is going to go through every single tuple, and for every single tuple, I need to go and look at each individual block, each individual tuple in the block. And so because of that, for tuple 1, I need to go through all the blocks of S. So this is R, this is S. And for tuple 2, same thing, I need to go through all the blocks of S. And so you can imagine in this case, the number of block transfers will be first the number of blocks of R, which is BR, and also the number of blocks of S, multiplied by the number of times I need to transfer the blocks into my inner for loop. So the number of times I need to transfer my blocks into the inner for loops, it will be the number of tuples in my outer for loop, which is equals to n of R. And hence my block transfers is equals to the number of tuples in my outer loop multiplied by the number of blocks of the relationship in my inner loop, and I add this with the number of blocks of my outer loop. Okay, so this is quite a handful. It may be a bit confusing initially, but you realize that it does make a lot of sense. Yeah, and this is the cost of the inner for loop, or rather of the block transfers. How about that for the block 6? So this will be the number of times you need to access the block. You realize that for the outer loop, I need to access it only the number of blocks of the outer loop, which is BR. So that will be the number of times I need to access the outer loop. How about the for the inner side? Inner loop, because I'm going to go through tuple by tuple, I will have to do the access NR number of times, which is the number of tuples in my outer loop. So for the block access, I will need NR plus BR number of accesses. So naturally, this is not the most efficient or effective way. You only do this if you have both R and S able to fit into memory. Then this is the probably the only scenario where you do this kind of a nested loop join. Let's look at the next so-called algorithm that gives us a better performance, which is the block nested loop join. So in the block nested loop join, what happens is that instead of doing the join tuple by tuple, we are going to do it block by block, and then followed by tuple by tuple. So this in fact is an improvement over the previous way, because right now, instead of having to transfer in and out all the NR times BS blocks, right now we reduce it all the way down to BR times BS, which is this term that you see over here. And why? Sorry, I should use the small letters. So BR times BS. So why is it right now from NR we reduce it down to BR? Reason being because we are now looking at it at the block level. So for every tuple within the block, we need not do the transfer anymore, and hence because of that, we just need to transfer the number of blocks BR number of times. So right now, this will be the cost of the transfers on the inner loop. The cost of the transfers of the outer loop will still be equals to BR, because that's the amount of time the blocks need to come in. So this is for the transfers. How about the block accesses? So for the block accesses, it is interesting. So it will be in fact for the outer loop, it will be BR, which is the number of times I need to access the block on the outer loop. And on the inner loop, interestingly, it is also BR, because every time I do access of the outer loop, I need to do the similar access of the inner loop. And so in that sense, we only need to do 2 times BR number of block accesses. So this part is actually pretty interesting, and as you can tell, it is quite a big improvement over the previous scenario of the basic nested loop join. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So in this example, we have a block nested loop join versus the basic nested loop join. So these were the numbers that we were provided at the beginning of the lecture. So number of blocks, number of students, number of ticks, number of blocks of the ticks. So if we have the block nested loop join, in the worst case scenario, you are going to do 2/6 times the number of blocks of my outer loop. Oh yeah, sorry. So the student is my outer loop, and the takes is my inner loop. So in the worst case scenario, I need to carry out 2 times my B of my outer loop. So which is in this case B of my student. So that's how I get 200 over here. How about transfers? So in my transfers, in the worst case scenario, I need to transfer 100 blocks for my outer loop, and my inner loop, every single block of my outer loop, I multiply it by the number of blocks of my inner loop, and that's how I get this value over here. The best case scenario, okay, maybe you take a moment to think when does this best case scenario occur? Okay. This best case scenario occurs when all my BR and BS is able to fit into my main memory, my RAM, and so I don't need to transfer in and out all the time, and so I only need to do 2 accesses. And for my transfers, so I just need to transfer everything into my main memory one time for my outer loop, and also for my inner one, I transfer everything into my main at the same time. So notice that yeah, I don't need to do any more disk accesses or any extra transfers, because everything is in fact transferred into my main memory. Okay, this is so we are good here. So notice that in the best case scenario for my block nested, it is exactly the same as that in my nested loop join. So when I look at my nested loop join, then I notice that the best case scenario is the same. So I will not go through this because everything gets loaded into the memory. So for the for both the access and the transfers, let's look at them in a bit more detail. So let's look at maybe we look at the transfer first. So for the transfer, so let's look at the ideal scenario whereby I am able to fit so-called a single block of student into the memory, and I can fit a single block of a course into memory as well. So my outer loop will be 100 transfers. This will be my B of my student, and this would be considered my outer loop. And how about my inner loop? Inner loop will be my number of records of my students multiplied by my number of blocks of my ticks. So this will be the number of transfers that I require. Okay? Because every single time I access the tuple in my outer loop, I need to go through all my blocks of my ticks. So which is why I have the number of tuples, which is 5,000, multiplied by number of blocks, which is 400 over here. Okay, that's good. So how about the number of these accesses? So I apologize. Maybe I should have done it the other way. So this is that of my outer loop. So outer loop, I only need to go through 100 disk accesses, but for my inner loop, every single tuple I need to go through 1 disk access, and so that's why this is equals to the n student. I hope this is clear. So on my right side, this is the scenario whereby I have I switch between my inner and my outer loop. So right now my student is now taking the inner loop, and my ticks is now taking the outer loop. So as you can tell, my best case scenario, it is still exactly the same. My transfers now is going to be very different. So for my transfers, what we find is that my seek time is now going to rather the amount of seeks I need to do is equals to the number of the amount is equals to, for the outer loop is going to be equals to 400, and for my inner loop so this is my outer, and for my inner loop this is going to be the number of records of my outer loop, which is 10,000. So number of these accesses will be 10,400. Okay. How about for the transfers? So for the transfers, notice that for the inner loop, maybe for the outer loop, it will be a number of ticks. So I need to transfer 400 blocks, and how the inner loop, for every single tuple of this, I need to transfer all my blocks. So it will come out with this number over here. Okay, good. Then I leave it to you all to calculate between this and this, which one is greater, which one is smaller, and how long each will take if we want to know the seek time or the transfer time. Okay. So now we have the join operation, but now it is the indexed nested loop join. So what is the difference between this versus our block join? So notice that in the block join we use the for loops to iterate across the blocks. For the indexed nested loop join, what we do is we do a index lookup. So instead of using a so-called tuple, so-called a linear scan, what we are doing is that we are now doing a index lookup to replace my linear scan. So if we were to compare this and this, the algorithm is the same. The only difference is that now I have an index that is on top, which is what we see over here. So what then is the difference between this and the other one? The difference is that the number of block accesses that we require is going to be very different. So notice that right now the index is going to be on S. So it's not going to be on R, but it's going to be on the inner loop. So let's do a bit of revision. So for primary, let's assume that it is a primary index and equality on the candidate key. The cost for this is always the same, which is the height of the tree multiplied by the sum of my disk access and my disk transfer. And because it is a primary key, candidate key, so I will only need to access one block because it is an equality. So there's only one such tuple, and so I only need t plus ts, only one disk access and one disk seek. One disk seek and one disk transfer. So in the worst case scenario, is the buffer is only able to hold one block of R and one block of the index. So let's try to break down how this formula works. Okay, so let's look at the left hand side of this formula. On the left hand side, this is the formula for the outer block. So essentially what it's trying to say is that we need to do a read, transfer and access for every single block of my outer block. So this is basically this part. And for the inner, for the other term, where's my mouse? Sorry. For the other term, this term is that on the inner block. And what it actually means is that for every single tuple of my outer block, I need to do a disk access, and this is the cost of the access of every tuple of S using my index. And what exactly is this C? This is going to be equals to this cost, whereby it is the cost of me getting in the B plus tree down to the leaf, as well as the cost of me accessing the block. So I have a place here that of the equality on candidate key, and if it's going to be equality on, or rather a range on candidate key or range on any tuple, then the cost will then be different correspondingly. So you have to so which is why this is a generic variable, just a C generic C variable, and it will depend largely on what kind of query you're trying to run. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now let's look at an example. So in this example, we're going to do a join, and in this join, we're going to have it's still going to be the same variables, and right now we are going to have an index on the index on the ID, and text is the inner loop, which means that the index is on text. So what do we so let's see how we calculate this. So for the out, let's look at the simple case, which is the outer loop. The outer loop is just going to be the number of blocks, which is B student and B student here. So as we discussed earlier, the time will be B student multiplied by T seek plus T transfer. So this will be that of the outer loop. Okay, let's look at the inner loop. So for the inner loop, we discussed earlier that the term that we need to multiply it with is going to be the number of tuples in my outer loop, and so which is why we have this 5000 over here. How did we get this number? So this number is based on a single so-called access on index. And so because of that, we need to have the height of the tree multiplied by TS plus TT, and I'm going to also have a TS plus TT because it is the is a candidate key ID. So for every tuple, there's only one corresponding entry, and so I only need to do one disk access and one disk seek. And that is why for every single time I need to do H plus 1 TS plus TT. So it will be this amount plus this amount. So this would give me equals to H plus 1 TS plus TT. What is my H? H is my branching, is the height of my B plus tree. How many tuples are there on my Okay, so before that, sorry, I should say which is the record we are talking about. The record we're talking about is that of Ticks. Ticks has 10,000 entries. For all 10,000 entries, it says that there are on average 20 entries on each index node, and so the branching factor is equals to 20. And as we have discussed earlier, if the branching factor is equals to 20, the height of the tree is going to be log of a number of entries 10,000 base the branching factor, which is 20. So log 10,000 base 20 is approximately equals to 4, and that is how I got equals to 4 plus 1. So this should be equals to 4 plus 1 times ts plus tt, and that is how I get 4 plus 1 over here and 4 plus 1 over here, which is exactly the same here. So this occurs every single tuple of my outer loop, and so that's why I have the 5,000 here. Yeah. So I hope this is clear. So how this works is the following. You the first thing you do is both of the tuples are sorted based on A1, and you will first find the tuples with the same A1 value and load it into the buffer. So first load this into the buffer, and then you increase PS correspondingly, and you're going to do a check over here, and if this is going to be the same as this, then we add the joint tuples into a result tuple. So result will be a 3, and we're going to increase PR, and now we realize that we are now at a different value of A1. We're going to start with this again, so this is going to get shifted over here, and you'll be joined back with this, so it will be B, 3, and 1. Okay, so we repeat this until either one of these is equals to null. Then that will mean that there's nothing else to join anymore. Okay, so the cost analysis of this is it is just the number of the sum of both of the blocks. So whereby I have the block of BS and the block of BR for transfers, and as well as that of the disk access. So each tuple needs to be read only once, each block needs to be read only once as well. Okay, so in the worst case scenario, only one buffer block is allocated to each input relation. So it will be 100 and 400 over here for the transfers, and 100 and 400 also for the sequence. So this will be BS, BR, BS, and BR. Okay, so of course during the merging process, we will deal with elimination of duplicates. So the run generation, so we do a run generation in the first part. Duplicates will still be there, but it is when we are doing the merging process, then do we remove all the duplicates that may come about. Okay. So you notice over here that you remove the duplicates from this part first and this part first, but the duplicate for C is not removed. The duplicates for C is only removed at this step. So something to take note of. Okay? So you only remove duplicates when you are going down when you're doing the merging process, but when you are you are only removing duplicates in your own so-called array in a sense. Okay. Recall that the cost analysis of the merge sort is the following. So if this is the number of blocks for relationship R, this is for the creation of the runs. So this is what we covered in the last lecture. So this is the merge sort. Oh, sorry, the external merge sort cost. So this is the cost in the creation of the different runs. The number of runs will be BR by M. So this is the height of the tree, or rather, this is the number of leaves of the tree, and this is the height of the tree. So you notice that the number of leaves of the tree and the branching out factor is n minus 1, and so this is going to be the number of these reads and writes for every level of the tree. Okay, and we're going to have the 1 here, which is the initial run creation, and so in total it will be the height multiplied by this, which is both the read and write, plus the initial run creation, which is 2 times BR. So the total cost is the following. Okay, let's run through one example. So suppose we need to solve the relation of 40 gig. The block size is 4K. The memory size is 40 meg. Suppose the disk transfer rate is 40 M per second. So let's do this together. So firstly, we want to calculate what is the value of M. So M is the number of blocks that is able to fit into memory. So your memory is 40 times 10 to the power of 6, and my block size is 4 times 10 to the power of 3. So that's why this is the number of blocks I can fit into memory. Okay, so the next thing we want to find out is how many blocks are there in my table, so which is like my BR. So I know that the size of my relation is 40 gig from here, and once again I'm going to use the size of my block. So my size of my block is 4K, which is over here. So this will be the number of blocks so in my relation. So this is so that's why we have BR. So the number of passes, which is the height of my tree, is equals to, remember, M minus 1. This is the I can't remember the formula. I think it's BR divided by M. Yeah, this is correct. Yeah, correct. It's BR divided by M, the seeding of this, and so this will be log of I know M is equals to 10 to the power of 4. 4 minus 1, 10 to the power of 7, which is here, divided by 10 to the power of 4, and this we have the answer here. So this is equals to approximately equals to 1. So I only need one pass to go through this entire relation. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to calculate how long does it take to transfer a block. So we know that the block size is 4 times 10 to the power of 3, and I know that the disk transfer rate is 40 M. So 40 M is 40 times 10 to the power of 6. So I think this should be this. So 40 times 10 to the power of 6. So to transfer a block, it requires 10 to the power minus 4. Okay, so far. Finally, we know that the following is 2 times, this is BR times number of paths, which is 1, plus my run creation times 10 to the power of minus 4, which is the time it takes for me to transfer a block. And if I were to multiply all these out, it will give me 4,000 seconds. So that's a 10. Okay, if this is fine, let's go on with another example. Let's look at this example. So I have two relations, R1 ABC, R2 CDE, and it has the following properties. So R1 has 20,000 tuples, R2 45,000 tuples. So yeah, 25 tuples of R1 fit into one block, 30 tuples of R2 fit into one block. Estimate the number of block transfers required in the worst case when I want to do a join of R1 and R2, and I'm going to do it in both ways. The first way is a block nested loop join. The second way is a merge join. Yeah? Okay, let's look at the first one. So let's look at the block nested loop join. The first thing we want to do is we want to find out the number of blocks that are like in R1. So the number of blocks in R1 will be equals to, we know that there are 20,000 tuples there, and because 25 tuples fit into one block, we divide this by 25, and this is going to give us 8. So it's 800, and R2, which is equals to 45,000 divided by 30, because 30 fit into one block, so 2 equals to 1500. So I know BR1 is 800, BR2 is equals to 1500. So this is going to be a block nested loop join. So for a block nested loop join, the worst case scenario for the number of transfers will be for the outer loop. So I have a block and I have another block. So for the outer loop, I always need 800. For the inner loop, for every single block of my outer loop, I need to iterate through one block in my inner loop. So this will be equals to 800 multiplied by 1500, which is what we have over here. Okay. Okay, let's look at the what will happen if we use the merge sort. So in the merge sort, what we do is the first part is that on the cost of merging, or rather the cost of carrying out the external merge sort. So we need to do the external merge sort for both our relationship 1 as well as relationship 2. So let us try to do this together. So for relationship 1, what we are going to have is 2 times 800, which is the number of blocks in B1. Okay. The number of blocks in B1 multiplied by log of m minus 1, 800 divided by m plus 1. And this is the ceiling of it. Okay? Okay, good. And the second one is going to be again 2 times the number of blocks in R2 multiplied by log m minus 1 ceiling of divided by m plus 1. Okay? We don't have the values of m, and so because of that we will leave it in terms of m in this case. If I were to give you something, you would definitely expect that I will give you the number of m. So for example, if we use back this, m is equals to 10 to the power of 4, so it's really like the number of indexes that can fit into every single block. Okay. Oh sorry. Sorry. Number of blocks that can fit into the memory. Sorry. So where were we? Yeah. So after that, this is the cost for R1, cost for R2, and we know that the join cost is equals to the cost of reading each block individually. So it will be 800 plus 1500. So the transfer cost will be this plus this plus this, and that will be how we solve this for merge join. Okay, I hope this has been clear. This is the last example. So anything that I may be of assistance to, you can always email me. Please email me at my SIT email, because I check that all the time. The DigiPen one, I don't check it that often. I apologize for that. But just send anything you want to my SIT email. My SIT email is on the forum already. So it's been my great pleasure to be teaching you this course, CS211. To be frank, it's my first time teaching a database course. I hope it's still fine. I hope it was not too boring for you guys. So I wish you all the best during this period of time, and please do stay safe. Thank you.